we separated for a while and lived life without each other. And I think that made us have more of an appreciation for who the other person was.
I love watching you this season on OC. So what's been the most difficult part about being a new housewife?
I think this balancing of work and home and filming, that's the most challenging part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Putting it all together.
How do you feel like you have balanced it, or have you figured it out yet?
I don't think I mean, the fact that I got through it and survived at the end means I guess I did something right. But no, I don't think I figured it out. But I think, every day you just get a little bit better at it.
Yeah. Now that you have finished filming this season, I mean, how do you feel about the experience?
As I said earlier in another interview, I thought it was much easier than I thought it was going to be. But you have to also look at my background. I was in grad school and medical school and residency and working in hospitals and having bone tumors. And so compared to that, reality TV is a piece of cake.
It's a piece of cake, yeah. So who has been the most welcoming and the least welcoming of the ladies this season?
I'd say Heather is probably the most welcoming. She's invited us into her home. She's gotten private jets. She's not, that aside, truly welcoming as a human being, calls me to make sure you're okay, how did last night go, just very kind. I think Gina has been really welcoming as well. So, I guess if I'm gonna go in order, I go Heather, Gina, Shannon, Emily, Noella. Mm-hmm. Noella's probably the least welcoming.
Least welcoming, yeah. We'll get to Noella in just a second, but are you happy that you made the decision, and was there ever any hesitation being I don't know if I really want to do this?
I'm thrilled that I was invited to be on the show. Of course, right before you start, you're don't know what's going to happen. And at that point, I'm wait, am I going to really do this? What is this going to be like? But having looked back, yes, I have no regrets.
No regrets. Well, that is a good thing.
We're going to come back to that later, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to get to that a little bit later. But, were you a fan of the show before you watched?
Yes. Yeah. I've known many of the women who have been on there. I know a lot of the ladies in Orange County, just my being in aesthetic medicine. I know a lot of women in Orange County. So a lot of people who have been on the show in the past or currently. So, yeah.
You've seen it all. In these upcoming episodes, I think it takes a deeper look into your marriage and, the state of your marriage and things like that. How are you feeling kind of going into that? And how do you feel about people kind of getting a glimpse inside your married life?
Well, I'll answer the first question first. So how do I feel going into it? Yeah. Brian and I are much better now. It got worse, and I turned a corner and came back around and got better. So now that I know the ending, right, I've lived through it and I know what's going to happen, I don't feel bad going into it because we're in such a better place than we were then or even a couple months ago. What was the second part of the question?
How do you feel about people kind of, getting an inside glimpse into your marriage?
I don't really like it. We've had a challenging relationship, and so people can be very judgmental. A lot of people have reached out and said, "Oh, you deserve better. How do you let them treat you that way?" But they don't know. They're not in the day-to-day. They don't know the history and your day-to-day life. So I'm almost like a little bit of want to defend him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can see, yeah, there are definitely time periods of our life where I would like to have him be more supportive. And it was some of the stuff was pretty embarrassing, right? That your husband would treat you that way. Right. So I felt humiliated at times, and that was probably the hardest part.
Yeah, I would imagine. Would you say that was the root of the problem? What you guys were going through is that he wasn't being supportive of you, and was he supportive of you going on the show?
The root of the problem probably is us respecting each other and being supportive of one another on both ends. I probably require a little bit more support than he does, but nonetheless, supporting each other. Mm-hmm. And was he supportive of me going on the show? He was 100% supportive of me going on the show. I think he knows himself pretty well, and he knows that he's, an introverted person. So that's not his cup of tea, but knowing Ryan and knowing how quiet he can be, I thought he actually did a really good job.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he even did a confessional.
Right.
I was like, that's so good. We've come so far. Look how far we've come. You're literally running away from cameras, and now you're like in the studio.
Right. Yeah. I know in an upcoming episode it teases that Ryan actually leaves for a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about that and where your marriage was at that point?
I mean, I think that was the beginning of the beginning of the end, I guess you could say. Because throughout the season and throughout our lives, he's becoming more dismissive, more distant, and it just reaches a breaking point where you're like, I mean, he just runs away. Mm-hmm. And again, I was put in a place where I felt very humiliated and abandoned and things that I don't want to feel. But coming back, and it got worse. So that happened, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse. But then it came back around in the end. So maybe that had to happen for us to, actually start changing things.
Definitely.
For us both to want to start changing things.
Sure. And how did you kind of get back to where you are right now?
We separated for a while and lived life without each other. And I think that made us have more of an appreciation for who the other person was and have a different outlook on getting back together and putting in the work to stay together.
Yeah, definitely. How long were you separated for?
For a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who was supporting you out of the castmates? Who was supporting you during that time? And will we see that during this show?
That's post filming. So okay. Yeah. So that was post filming, and I mean, Heather was still being very supportive. I talked to her outside of filming. I talked to some of the girls, but yeah, she was very supportive of that. It was so intense, though. I wasn't really talking to many people. I was just trying to get through it. It was pretty intense.
Would you say that the show put a strain on your marriage, or would you say the show actually opened up like a magnifying glass into what was going wrong in your marriage?
I would say that the show put a magnifying glass on what was going on in our marriage that we had ignored for so many years, and when both of us were not happy. And then when you have, a magnifying glass and 20 cameras on you, 30 cameras on you, you're forced to look at it, right? You're forced to either come together or walk away. Mm-hmm. And so we walked away and then came together. We did both. So.
Full circle, right? Full circle. I have to ask, does your husband ever wear a shirt?
Barely. Oh my gosh. So part of that. No, he doesn't. He does not. He has like one shelf in the laundry room where he keeps his clothes. So it's like there's nothing there. It saves a fortune on clothes, though. He did buy 2 new shirts in our getting back together world now. He has 2 nice shirts that he wore to dinner. I was like, thanks.
New man.
You look so handsome. I hardly recognize you, clothes.
I love it. Well, let's move on to some of the ladies. I spoke to Noella recently, and I hate to start some drama off camera, but she said that you were a thirsty person. What is your reaction to that? I said this in another interview. Sometimes people they're looking in a mirror. So I disagree. It doesn't offend me whatsoever because it's just not true. So I think that she's probably very thirsty. I'd be like, are you looking at yourself in the mirror here? She can say whatever. Truth is the truth. I mean, we see her marriage kind of crumble this season, and it's been a lot of he said, she said since cameras were rolling. Have you been taking sides, and what do you think about the state of her marriage, I guess?
Well, I feel bad for her. I think that separating, even when you're supposed to separate, is a very difficult thing to do. Mm-hmm. And then adding children on top of that is even more difficult. That being said, having experienced Noella, I could see how it would be extremely challenging to be in a relationship with her. And so I kind of have some empathy for James. So.
Yeah. Do we find out more about, the whys throughout the course of this season about the split?
When I asked her, because I was really trying to be supportive for her, do you want to get back together? Do you want to see him? Do you want to fight for your marriage? I'm fighting for my marriage. You want to fight together for marriages? And I just kept getting answers all over the place. So it was very hard to sort through what actually was going on, because one day it's like, he's protecting me, he's leaving me to protect me from these tax liens, and the next one is he's this horrible human being. So you can't really move forward when you don't even have like the basis of what's happening, right? So it's difficult to navigate.
Yeah. Was it difficult at times when you're trying to be friends with somebody and they seem kind of either dismissive or not very interested? Because, you know, we see Heather try to talk with her as well, and she just didn't seem like she was very much on board of even being friends with Heather as well.
Noella, I would say, has pretty extreme mood swings. I would relate it to talking to a toddler. So one second we're over here, and the next second we're over here, and there's like no defining factor of why we're swinging from side to side. So just like, you're just trying to like get through it, like what is going on? We're talking about like grilled chicken, and suddenly she's over here like crying about something and then laughing over here about something. So it's like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you actually become friends with somebody or close to somebody? You don't. You just sit there and like wait for it to be over.
What do you make of her and Heather's dynamic? Because in an interview recently, Noella said that Heather perceives her as a threat. Do you feel like that is the case? I feel like that is ludicrous. Like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I do not think that she finds her as a threat whatsoever. I think that Noella is just probably trying to boost herself up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She would love to be she would love it if Heather was, she was a threat to Heather, but that in reality will never be the case. Right. What was your reaction when Noella brought up straight fragility? And do you think that she really knew the gift that she gave Heather's daughter? You know, I think it was nice to give her daughter a gift. That's nice to reach out. But and I was trying to explain this to her on the dinner at Cabo, like whenever you give somebody's child a gift, you have to know what you're giving. You can't just order on Amazon and have it shipped. Like, you got to read the fine print. This is a new person in your life. Mm-hmm. It's her child. Like, that's like, you can't play ignorant on that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. No, not a good thing. That was such a frustrating moment too, because it's like I'm trying to explain that to her, and it's just like she can't sentence track what's going on at the table. It's like all over the place. Who would you say is her biggest supporter then out of everybody in the group? Or has she made any friends still over the course of the season? She started off with a lot of support. Mm-hmm. She came after me pretty early on, making up lies about me, which I did not tolerate whatsoever. And she admitted that she made up lies about me and that she would not be doing that again. And we were working on building trust. Mm-hmm. So, and then after that, she went after Heather. You know, the girls kind of came up to me and were like, "You're being so insensitive to her." I'm like, "No, I'm not being insensitive to her. She's making up vicious lies about me that attack my credibility and my livelihood. So that I'm not tolerating whatsoever. She's no basis." And she goes, "Yeah, I made them up out of thin air." So then when she started going after Heather, I could totally relate. I'm like, "Oh, I just went through that by myself." And so, you know, that's a personality trait. People, like, healthy individuals just don't go around making up lies about other people. So, of course, she went down the list of all the girls. And at the end, nobody even wanted to film with her. So, I just let it play out. I'm like, I don't even think I have to do anything here. This is just going to all play out how it should. Right. And, you know, we're pretty much almost halfway through this season. I mean, what are you most looking forward to for fans to see at the later part of this season? Well, we have some intense stuff coming up with me. I know I got inebriated at Heather's house, so that was a fun night. And I just went all the way. And then we have the Aspen trip coming up, which was so much fun. We had a blast. Well, it's been so much fun watching you this season, and I can't wait to watch the rest of it. Dr. Jen, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.